In this video, I am going to review and compare both the Olympus 300mm lens and the Olympus 100 to 400mm lens and give my opinion on which is better for wildlife photography. I am going to grade both lenses based off the build quality, the autofocus performance, low light performance, close-up abilities, and the overall image quality of both. I am also going to give my opinion on which lens is best for you based on your budget and what you plan on using these lenses for. I'll have all the specifications for the 300mm lens on the screen right now, but starting off with the build and handling of this lens, the first thing you will notice is that this lens is very light for a 600mm equivalent lens, which makes handheld photography very easy. A tripod, in my opinion, isn't necessary unless you are trying to get some steady footage or you are shooting in a low light situation when you are shooting at a slow shutter speed. The lens has two switches, a focus limiter switch and an image stabilization switch. And there's also a lens function button as well. Something that I really like about the design of this lens is the built-in lens hood, just because it's unique and I don't know any other lens that has a built-in hood like this one. The only thing I don't like about the build is the manual focus clutch, because it is so easy to push the lens into manual without you even realizing it, and there's no way to prevent this since there is no lock switch. There's been several times where I'm getting ready to take a shot and I realized the autofocus wasn't working because my lens was in manual, and I ended up missing the moment I wanted to capture. Nowadays, I'm much more aware of the clutch and that doesn't happen as much now, but it's still very annoying, and I know anyone who's ever used this lens will agree with this. Now onto the Olympus 100 to 400 build. The weight of this lens is essentially the same as the 300mm lens, which makes handheld photography not much of an issue if you prefer shooting handheld. This lens has 4 switches, a focus limiter, autofocus to manual, image stabilization, and a lock switch on the opposite side to prevent the lens from zooming out when not in use. Zooming in and out with this lens is very smooth, and overall, I have no complaints with the build quality of this lens. When it comes to the autofocus for both lenses is very quick. Almost an instant lock onto subjects, especially in great lighting conditions. Based off of feel, the autofocus on the 300mm may be slightly quicker, but not by much. Now when it comes to image stabilization is where there is a slight difference between the two lenses. The 300mm lens is compatible with 5-axis image stabilization, which is a feature that is available in Olympus OMD cameras. 5-axis stabilization, in short, will help counteract camera shake when using slower shutter speeds. So overall, this feature paired with the in-lens stabilization makes handheld photography and shooting in poor light much easier. The 100 to 400mm lens, on the other hand, isn't compatible with 5-axis stabilization, but as long as you are shooting at a fast enough shutter speed, you won't have many issues with the in-lens stabilization of the 100 to 400. When it comes to shooting in poor light conditions, the 300mm easily outperforms the 100 to 400. And this shouldn't be a surprise at all, since the maximum aperture of the 300mm is f4, while the maximum aperture of the 100 to 400 will most of the time be f6.3. Also, the fact that the 300mm is compatible with 5-axis stabilization will make shooting at slower shutter speeds easier if needed. I often struggle to get quality photos in low light with the 100 to 400, and that was the main thing I didn't like about the lens, because I like shoot in early mornings around sunrise time, and the areas I often shoot at are shaded with lots of tree coverage, which blocks out a lot of sunlight. So just be aware that you will probably find yourself struggling more often than not to get sharp photos with the 100 to 400 in not ideal lighting conditions. A good thing about both lenses is that both are compatible with the 1.4 and 2 times teleconverters. I've only ever used the converters on the 300mm lens, In my experience with the 1.4 is that you won't be able to tell a difference quality-wise with or without it, which is great because that will put you at 420 millimeters or 840 if you convert to full frame, with a max aperture of 5.6. The only time you will notice a quality difference is in a low light situation. With the 2.0 converter, you will definitely notice a quality drop in your photos, but as long as the lighting is good, you can still take some quality photos with the 2x. I honestly haven't used the converters on the 100 to 400, so I can't say how good the photo quality is with them. But I don't feel like a teleconverter is necessary with this lens because it already has a good enough reach on its own. But if you were to use one, I would go with just the 1.4, but only use this in very good lighting conditions. Let me know down in the comments if anyone has any experience with teleconverters with this lens, because I'm curious about how good or bad the photo quality is with converters. When it comes to taking close-up shots, both lenses excel at that. I was honestly shocked with how well both lenses performed when taking close-ups. You will easily be able to take sharp images of larger bugs such as butterflies along with plants and small animals with no issues. These lenses will however struggle with smaller subjects since these aren't macro lenses that go up to 1:1 magnification, so I recommend just using them for larger macro subjects if you want the best quality. Now on to the most important part, which is the overall image quality of these lenses. Starting with the 100 to 400, the image quality is pretty good. The lens really shines best in good lighting conditions, and in my opinion, the sharpness of this lens in good light can be just as good as the 300mm. Like I said earlier, the only downside is that it's challenging to take sharp photos with this lens in bad lighting. But overall, the photo quality is good and you won't be disappointed in that. The overall quality of the 300mm is superb. You will be surprised with how much feather and hair details this lens can capture. This lens is great in low light situations and with the 1.4 teleconverter, so overall, no complaints at all with the photo quality of this lens. In my opinion, the 300mm is easily the better lens for wildlife photography. It has better image stabilization, better in low light situations, and most importantly, the photo quality is better. But me saying that doesn't mean that I think the 100 to 400 is a bad lens, because I think it's a great lens as well. It's much cheaper and more versatile since it's a zoom lens. If you are looking for a telephoto lens that will produce amazingly sharp images, then I recommend a 300mm lens. I know the lens is expensive, but if you compare the price to other full-frame 600mm prime lenses, you will notice that most of those will cost you well over $10,000. If you prefer the versatility of a zoom lens, and you also plan on using it for more than just wildlife photography, then I recommend the 100 to 400 lens. Let me know down in the comments if you own one of these lenses, and let me know what you think about them down in the comments. But I hope you all enjoyed this video and found it to be helpful. And if it was, make sure to like and subscribe for more. I'll catch y'all in the next video.